thank you for that.
I don't have a question. I just wanted to give an update and thank you both again for your support of CHI St. Gabriel's Health Opioid Project. Oh, Kathy Lang, CHI St. Gabriel's Health Foundation. So since we started the program, okay, this originally came from a grant, of course, through the Department of Health.
Can't hear you back there.
Oh, sorry. Okay. I'm Kathy Lang with CHI St. Gabriel's Health, and I just wanted to give the representatives an update on our opioid project at the hospital, and also to thank you for your continued support and moving pilot projects across the state of Minnesota and doing all this good work. And 342 patients have been tapered completely from opioids. Now, and this is all basically prescriptions that the patients didn't need anymore. So it equals 31,876 units per month of opioids that are no longer prescribed in our county, and which equals $2.7 million of Medicaid savings, because the majority of these patients are on medical assistance programs. So the $400,000 grant we received is carried over and over again. So as we continue this work, and I just want to point out too that I was invited to speak to the Catholic Health Association in Chicago in November, and it was a little intimidating because I was up against this director of medicine in this big Chicago hospital, and the next gentleman speaking after me was from the Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C. And when I did my PowerPoint and had the Morrison County map, the Minnesota map, and Morrison County, and I said we're a small critical access hospital, they were all, their jaw just dropped because they thought we were this big health system, and we're just a critical access hospital doing this work. So, and then I just want to share too that when we were in Washington, D.C., meeting with Senator Franken, former Senator Franken, and Senator Klobuchar and Congressman Nolan, we had done a couple of briefings about our work in rural Minnesota, and we were eating lunch, getting ready to leave for the airport, and Dr. Devine and I were sitting outside, and this young man, he came up to us, he pulled out his earbud, and he said, "Thank you for all the work you're doing." He said, "If there were more programs like yours, that my sister who died of a heroin overdose last year could be saved." And that's why we do this work, to save those who became addicted, and mostly of no fault of their own. So thanks. We'll continue the work. You guys can continue to throw some funding your way, so that'd be great. All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Deb?
Hard to follow Kathy, but I'm Deb Lau, Morrison County Auditor Treasurer, and I just want to stress to you all the problems with MNLARS. I know you guys are both aware, but it's a really big issue, still a lot of problems. I know they brought in somebody new to help get everything on track, and that is helping, but the new software has pushed a lot of work down to our level. My staff is working a lot of overtime. We are getting no additional funding. So right now, all the funding is still going to the state instead of down to the county level where the work has been pushed. So I am really stressing to you that the legislature needs to do something about this with the funding and the fee structure this year. It's very critical that something has to happen this year.
Did I read you had 400 hours of overtime?
Yes.
In that department?
Just in Morrison County.
Just in Morrison County.
It's frustrating for me because I believe they started MNLARS something like 10 years ago.
Yes.
And promise, because there was a lot of questions from the legislative body, both Democrat and Republican. But in the end, it was a total fiasco, very similar to Minshew, where they promised, and we spent a lot of money. And so I'm actually trying to rethink how do we roll out technology, because the state has not been able to deliver it like what you see in the private sector. So I'm just trying to think about how do we do this so that it never happens again, because we always have to update technology. And so, but we are talking about how do we reimburse counties and private groups that were helping. So that's get your county folks to come talk to us, because we are already talking about that. And as a state representative of the state, I have to apologize that it never happened that way.
And the second wave comes out this year with driver's license, which has to be implemented by October. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I echo it. The sad reality in all of this was we didn't get much support from the executive branch. In fact, what they've done is they blamed your folks, and when we tried to alert them of this, they said we were just being political. We heard from you guys. We knew what was going on, and we kept trying to explain to the executive branch they needed to get some help. And finally, when that did happen, it was too late. And so it's very frustrating, and as much as I can apologize, I will.
We appreciate your support.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, that's not the way it should run. It's just not. Shouldn't run.
Anyone?
I got a call the other day. I have family living down in the cities, Farmington to be exact. My niece has a 3-year-old daughter in preschool down there. And the other day she came home and was announcing to everybody very excitedly in the family that, again, 3 years old, she said, "I'm a girl now, but when I turn 5, I can be a boy." Now, she's not the only one. There was a similar story broadcast on CBN, which is Christian Broadcasting Network, just recently. And I'm wondering how much of this is going on in the schools. It's indoctrination, and I'm just wondering if there's anything you can do about it, or, if you will do something about it, because obviously a 3-year-old, I don't even know if she realized what she was saying, but that's what she brought home and was very thrilled about it. And obviously, this is a big concern. Thank you.
Well, we are without a doubt in the middle of cultural clashes within our society about which way we should go on a number of issues, and that's one of them. I mean, the whole, it just is. It's contrary to my Christian worldview, but it is something we are wrestling with as an overall culture about which way we should go. And another issue is whether somebody can be in the opposite sex showers, locker rooms, and bathrooms. We're trying to figure out how do we do this. And I know that your local school district here handled it really well, and individually and figured it out. But that is the struggle that we're working through.
Yes, sir, but for years this was a no-brainer. I mean, there's right and wrong. You guys are Christians. You go to church. You read the Bible, I hope, and whatever your churches teach you as Christian churches. God gave us God-given, set of rules, and He made us. He made us the way we are. And all of a sudden, everybody wants to be. I mean, for years everybody was boy or girl. There was no question about it. But and now just because groups are coming out and saying, I want to be a boy when I'm a girl, or vice versa, or all these different things. Now all of a sudden we have to stop and think about it, and what are we going to do about it? Well, it's comes from a higher source. God is the one that made the rules, not us. We should follow what's right in His eyes. If we call ourselves a Christian nation, we should look at it through God's eyes. And it shouldn't even be an issue. Okay? So, to even have it come into the courts or be discussed is ludicrous. It's wrong. We all know it.
Yeah, I'll make one more comment and let Ron talk. But there are different issues that we come to different positions. We were down at the March for Life yesterday at the Capitol. Many from this group, there were people down there, and which I absolutely stand with and believe that the unborn is God-given gift to us, precious, created with His hand, but about half disagree. And so that's why I say there's different cultural things that we are trying to mesh together that are deeply divided. But I know what I believe and what the plumb line is and why I believe what I believe, but others have a very different view. And that's where it becomes more difficult than you can imagine as a legislator when you have people that have such opposing views on issues that for you are clear.
But sir, within the past, 8-10 years, this has become something that we have to discuss and really think about. Whereas before it was a given.
Schools should stick with facts, not opinions. They should stick with biology, not cram their opinion down other people's throats and say this is true. It's
Especially the
not.
minority is getting the majority of citizens in the United States as Christians and the Judeo-Christian faith. The minorities are getting their way more and more and more, and this is not right.
So,
Take a stand.
I just thank you for that. As far as a legislative response, I've supported school choice. I've supported alternative education paths. Certainly, I believe that parents are the moral authority, and that's where your foundation is going to be taught. If you should choose to send your kids to a Christian school or perhaps a Jewish school or whatever, that's what I would like to expand as more school choice. I'd also like, we have a good homeschooling network, so we have the ability for parents to choose the best path and how they're going to educate their kids. I am a very firm believer that that's where it should come from. In fact, I think in too many cases, and it doesn't matter which philosophy you subscribe to, the parents are releasing that control to another authority. And I think that's our biggest problem. There probably isn't a day that goes by that my kids don't come home and bring up something that they heard, maybe not even from the school, but from other kids or in the media or the culture. And we're always bouncing that up against who we are and our faith and our beliefs. And so, I'll throw that out there. The other side of this, as far as legislatively, I don't know what law we would put in place. We don't have a law in place that says you have to teach this. And individual teachers are going to say things. They're going to talk about their own experiences, and that's the school board, the superintendents, the principals' jobs to hold them accountable. And ultimately, we vote for school board members, and school boards hire superintendents. Greg, we may have had a passionate disagreement earlier, but I think we can both agree that the best place those conversations have to happen is with your school board members, because they are the closest. I don't know, I can ask you, what law would you like us to put in place that would solve that? I don't know that there is a law. And I don't know if you go back to our founding fathers and our beliefs and our Constitution, I don't know that you want us to put a law in place, because depending on how the power shifts, do you want some power entity to come along and say you can't teach your Christian beliefs? So I think we have to be careful with all those issues, and I go back to a lot of this still should happen in the home. And I think if you traverse through all the failings and misgivings we have, a large percent of the times you're going to find out where things are falling down at home and the family's breaking up, that a lot of these problems are in place. So that's what I would add.
I would just say this real quickly.
Yeah.
That I agree with you totally that parents are responsible for raising up a child, but once the child leaves the home, I can't tell you the number of parents that have, including myself, that have raised a child in a Christian home, and they've gone off to a college that has offers, some subject that they want to pursue down the road in their life, and it happens to be a liberal college. And those professors, they get a hold of these kids, and I don't know if it's peer pressure or what, but these guys have the degrees behind them, and they come out of those colleges with a liberal mindset that would blow your mind. And even though I did the best to raise the, Christian way of living and teaching them the gospel and everything, they get to these colleges and it's 180 degrees around, and they come back a different person, and I've heard so many stories. So it's the schools and we do the best as parents to raise them upright, but I don't know. It's gotten to that point. It's a sad case. So.
Thank you. Other questions? We've got about 10 minutes left. Zach?
Zach, I'm just curious if you could give an update on how that rural broadband stuff is actually working out on the ground. I'm just wondering, like places like Morrison County, if we've seen any expansion or anything actually working out.
Sure. So, I mean, we put a grant program in place that entities can apply for. And what did we do last year? We did 20 or 25, and the year before that we did almost 40 at the end. So, I mean, you know, we can put the programs in place. The hardest part is the ground freezes, and that holds things back, as well as it takes a while to get these funds distributed. So it's not going to be an overnight success. It's going to take a long time, and we still have an economics problem. I mean, I hear this a lot, and I hear people say, well, when's that fiber going to reach me? Well, you know what, if you're 5 miles into the woods and it's going to cost me $40,000 to get that fiber to you as a provider, and you're only going to pay $39 a month, you know, I'm not coming for a little while. So we have to be creative with wireless solutions. We're going to have to be creative with satellite, and we're going to have to look at all options. I know the 5G technology that's coming through phones will help. But we've made a lot of good progress. If you look at the amount of homes, I think there was a couple of townships around in northern. I know Fort Ripley we're still trying to get to, and there's some up in Aiken. We're making some progress. CTC has done a great job. They've had some grants, but you know, it's just tough, and it's going to be an expensive, hard endeavor until we get to that last mile, that last home. But all we can do is support it. I think innovation is going to make this come quicker. You know, I can already see hotspots with phones that are making a big difference. So, and it's a big issue. It's an equalizer because, as you know, if we don't have continuing broadband, we're not going to see professionals moving into our communities and setting up businesses and so forth. So, we're going to just keep pushing.
Chris?
Chris Bomberg, Little Falls Convention and Visitors Bureau. Conversation, I'm sure you gentlemen are both familiar with, in November, Little Falls will have an opportunity to elect for a new sales tax. You look at things going on right now like the Super Bowl, Minneapolis and the surrounding areas, sales tax in Brainerd, what does that pay for? What does Sartell sales tax pay for? We are a rural community with a very limited amount of folks, hotels, lodging, restaurants. If we have, what you've seen in small towns, a larger facility to host conventions, what have you seen as a success in small towns? Would the sales tax be a great thing for Little Falls? Could it bring more money with economic development? What's your opinion on that?
I'm going to take a long snap and punt. and I say that, you know, I don't support bond referendums one way or the other. I don't for school boards. I don't even give my opinion on either one because it's out of place for me to do so. I really think that's a local decision, and no matter which side I were to fall on, it's not fair to either side if I were to amplify a message that doesn't need to be amplified. So,
But
I
do
would,
you see
well,
positive
it
in our
can
community?
help, but it really depends on the community, and the community has to make the case to their people that it would matter to that community, and that's why we do it the way we do it. You know, lots of communities would say that was successful. I'm not sure every community would, and that's why voters often turn them down as well. So, you know, I think Ron is right, though. It's up to you to make the case, and the voters are going to decide.
And Raquel wants to add to that.
Doesn't that have to be approved by the legislature though before it can be put to a vote?
Yeah.
So we decide how we want to spend our local sales tax option, and then we, like you
yeah, our
said,
job is
make
to
a
give you the
case.
ability. Your job is to decide if you want it.
Okay, so it has to be approved by you first though before it can go to a vote locally.
I don't know.
Isn't that the case?
I think you might already have it. Do you know? Where's John?
It's the other way.
It's the other way around.
It would go to the general election first, and then it would be approved by this.
Okay, so if the voters vote for it, then
Yes.
you guys approve. Okay, that's not what I was going to say.
Okay.
No. Raquel Lundberg with the City of Little Falls. First of all, I want to thank you for all the great work you do. I want to thank you for your support for the CRVST.
Can you say it a little louder? Maybe right in
The Camp Ripley Veterans Trail. support that we've received several $1 million for that. We've got a project coming up. It's not, it's still being talked about, but at some point, MnDOT is going to be replacing our bridge, and they will pay to replace it just the way it is. And there's been some talk about having that bridge go over the rails, which is going to be a lot more money. It's a really dangerous crossing. My understanding is that it's the #1 most dangerous crossing in the state. And so because of that status, if a train derails, Mississippi River is going to be full of tar sand or whatever's on the train. So we would ask that you would support us in raising funds to make this bridge happen over the railroad track instead of just across the way it is. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I know there's some conversations about that, and I certainly am aware of what the project could be. I will say that, and I've been clear to the leader, if the community supports this and we find ways to fund it, there's ways to make it happen. But that's where it's got to start. And I appreciate all that. I live 2 blocks from there. Believe me, if that derails, I got nowhere to go.
Ron and I were talking about it before the meeting, so he's laying out strategy on how we can get it done. And I'll tell you, the bonding bill, we'll likely have a bonding bill this year. We had the biggest one ever last year, but it was kind of pent up. A number of years we didn't do anything. And I've said that I'm open to a bonding bill. I want to focus on roads and bridges and wastewater infrastructure as the 2 big areas. So that one fits #1.
And I would just add, and you can certainly talk to Kathy, this is how it works down there. You need to build momentum. You need to come down, you need to make your case in front of the legislature. No matter which way we vote, you've got to get their buy-in. Kathy knows that. And so get the community behind it, get a big showing to come down there, and that's how things move. They don't happen with 1 or 2 people. So.
Well, we kind of did that with the CRBST, and then it
Yep.
was all shut down last minute, so we never were able to get that bus load down there.
Right.
So we need to know when it's going to happen so we can be prepared to get there.
I mean, we can schedule, I'm sure we can get hearings for you. I'm sure we can get opportunities for you to speak, as well as the other side. But that's how this works, right? We take everybody with their ideas, they come at it, and they're passionate about what they believe in, and we come to hopefully the conclusion that works.
Okay, last question.
Hi, I'm Shirley Japp from Cushing, and I'm going back to my land issue.
Yes.
Okay, this is a little different though. I'm talking about the school trust fund. And do you have any knowledge, are you on the committee, the natural resources? Oh, okay. I've understood that the fund has been depleted, gone, whatever. I was wondering, now recently the school district did vote to exchange and sell school trust lands, and I was wondering if you could research that for me, find out what lands they're talking. I know it's in the boundary waters and the national forest, but it's supposed to go back to the legislature this year. And I'd like to know what's happened to that funding, why there is no funding any longer, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, and sure. I'm with you. I'm very protective of those. And actually, Representative Tim O'Driscoll in the House has been, this has been his main issue, and we've been fighting to keep those and keep those. So I'm going to reach out to him, and I'm going to have his office reach out to you, because they know this issue very, very well, and we've been very, I believe we're on the same page on this one, and I don't want to see that great resource go away.
Okay, and I know I'm not alone with asking that we need more oversight into DNR spending.
Yeah, you're
what
not
happens
alone
to
in
the
that.
fund? Yeah.
No, and I think you'll both, I mean, I think the one area that we can do is getting the DNR to be way more accountable. If nothing else, just transparency. I mean, and just to know exactly why they're doing what they're doing, because there's a lot of frustration there. But I'll get you some info on the school trust.
And a brief comment on the school trust line. We changed it because it was designed from its inception to provide resources for education. And it turned into, let's just set this land aside and do nothing with it. So in 2012, I think it was, maybe 13, we actually change or clarified the language to make sure that it was heading the direction it was supposed to, and that is, timber, mining, whatever it is that fit into those categories, that they would use that so that the money went where it's supposed to. So, if it's not heading there now, we'll pay attention.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any closing comments or remarks?
No, just that we thank you for coming out. I mean, it's some of these, we don't have answers for every single question you have out there. Some of them are deep and complex, but we want to listen, and then there's things that we can say, man, we should be doing something about that. And so thank you for coming. It really matters.
Yeah.
And they can't represent you unless they know what your issues are, and they both have been more than willing to take emails, phone calls, contact them, and we'll see where we end up.